Welcome back, everyone, to the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. It is my pleasure to be here once more and have another very interesting, very amazing guest with me in Sophia Demas. She was she also responded through the podcast cast form after hearing my show with Lindsay Stanton. If you remember that one, that was an interesting one. So yeah, Sophia, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for responding. I have, of course, read your response. Have had a little thought about it, but for those who may not be familiar with you just yet, introduce yourself. What do you do? What's your secrets?
Well, thank you for inviting me. So I have written 2 books. Actually, I did not want to write a book. Okay, that was not on the table for me. I was told by a uh, um, a medium
Mm-hmm.
years ago that I was going to write a book. And I argued with her. I said, that's not on the table. I said, I'm a people person. I'm not going to sequester myself somewhere and write. I have nothing to say. And she just let me go on. And then she said, word for word, she said, Spirit says when she's ready, there are many spirits here to help her and many hands on earth. And so what happened is I had started to experience miracles when I was 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened then was I was going through 2 issues. I mean, like 2 issues that gave me existential angst. And I considered both of them to be unsolvable. And then somehow in a very short period of time, a man emerged and I had a dream. And what happened was that as a result, the 2 issues were solved and I transformed. I had a transformation. I experienced transformation into another person. And that was not lost on me. So I started paying attention. And so in 2011, I would tell people my miracles. And people would respond the same. Oh, these things only happen to you. And I found that kind of annoying because I'm not special,
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2011, I reconnected with a childhood friend. And I told her my latest miracle. And she said, oh, these things only happen to you. And something clicked because I thought everybody has a miracle story or a coincidence or something. But the number of events they're so numerous that why me? So what I did is I made a list of all the miracles that I've experienced in chronological order, the best I could. And I realized that preceding each miracle was a coincidence. And then when I realized that I took action on the coincidence, I got a miracle. And by that, I mean getting exactly what you needed at just the right time. So here's my basic philosophy. I believe as a result of these things happening to me, there is no doubt that there is a divine intelligence that knows what's best for us better than we do. See, unfortunately, we were given free will. And as a result, we have wars and all this man-made suffering,
Mhm.
So, so I believe that this divine intelligence communicates with us very cleverly through dreams, um, uh, putting a stranger in front of us that says exactly what we need to hear, or putting coincidences in our path. And our job is to take action. And so once we take action, we may very well get exactly what we need. And then we in turn communicate with divine intelligence through prayer and gratitude.
Oh, okay. It's so interesting, like hearing that, like through, especially through dreams, like dream interpretation. It's a whole thing, and even um, well, as early as like maybe a few hundred years ago, if you said like, hey, God or like the gods came to me in a dream and told me to do this, um, people would see that as, the divine actually came to you. There wasn't anything weird about that. There wasn't anything kooky about that. And nowadays, when you try to say like, hey, God or whatever kind of divine spirit came to me in a dream and told me to do this, um, if with a bit of bad luck, you'll end up being locked away in a mental hospital.
Well, actually, what's really interesting, in my case, it's coincidences, synchronicities. Okay. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I distinguish between a coincidence and a meaningful coincidence, which I call synchronicity. But what's really interesting to to is that scientists are now interested in synchronicity. Synchronicity is actually trending with scientists, and in fact, there's a group out of the UK called the Scientific and Medical Network, which you should look up because it's very interesting. Um, and uh, they had invited me to help plan and participate in their Synchronicity Summit as the only non scientist, non academic. And I find that very, very encouraging.
Oh, that's really cool. That definitely gives some credit to it all. Um, what were some of the miracles that happened, and what to you um is a miracle?
Well, as I said, I believe that a miracle is getting exactly what you need at just the right time. So, um, actually, in I don't know if you're familiar with A Course in Miracles, but it's a book that was channeled by this woman,
Mm-hmm.
and it's Christ's voice. And what it defines a miracle is a change of perception for the better. Simply a change of perception for the better. So, but for me, it's been. I can give you. I will give you. I'll give you a couple of instances, and these two. And I don't consider one miracle bigger or better than the other. Some
Mm-hmm.
I've considered more important. Okay, so these two events happened around my wedding. Okay, so my husband, well, then fiance, we decided to get married on 4th of July, and the wedding was going to be 4th of October. So that's just 3 months. So basically, a lot of the venues, all the venues were taken, musicians, photographers, and we thought it doesn't matter, we'll have it at the church. We have the church organist, it doesn't matter because, I have a
Mhm.
friend who's an event planner and she can make anything beautiful. So here's what happened. I call my friend Anne, and this man answers the phone. And I said, is Anne there? And he says, Sophia, is that you? Okay, that's all I had said is Anne there. And he says, it's Jerry. You called me. Look, I'm really late for a meeting. Can I call you later? Now I recognized his voice because he has this Greek accent. And I mean, I'm like completely blown away. And I had dialed one digit off, and I got
Oh.
someone else that I knew socially. Okay, I knew him socially, and so I said, Jerry, you have to call me back. I mean, this is just bizarre. Promise me you're going to call me back. He goes, I promise. So he calls me back. At the time, he owned the Barclay Hotel here in Philadelphia, which is this beautiful old world hotel. So I told him, I was getting married. And as a result of that conversation, he gave us the ballroom at the Barclay for free and threw in 2 nights in the presidential suite. However, he asked that we invite him and his girlfriend to the wedding, which we were very happy to do. So that is an example of a coincidence that leads to getting exactly what you need. Okay, now I'm going to tell you the second one, and I would like you to tell me which one you think is stranger. Okay?
Okay, sure.
So I get a phone call from this woman who says, oh, I found your driver's license in the park. And lo and behold, my driver's license was not in the pocket where it was supposed to be. So it's a Oregon driver's license. And she said, how can I get it to you? And I said, so we found out that she only lived 2 blocks away, which would make sense that she would find my driver's license
Yeah.
around our neighborhood. And so I said, oh, just slip it through the mail slot, where I live. Okay, so she did a lovely little note about how she and her boyfriend love going to Oregon and what a great time they have there. And that was that. But it wasn't that. So a couple of months later, I get a phone call from the same woman who says, you're going to find this to be a little strange, but I just found your ATM card. Now, I don't lose cards, but I would go to this one ATM machine that would, spit out the card right away.
Mhm.
And I would just take it and put it in my pocket. But this particular machine would keep the card until the end of the transaction. And then this thing would appear, would you like another transaction? Well, because I was so used to having the card already, I left without saying no. So the next person could just wipe out my whole account. But it was her. So she looks and it's my card. So she says, would you like me to slip it in your mail slot? I said, no, we've got to meet. I said, you and I have to meet. So she comes to my studio, and I had this handmade soap from Oregon to give her as a thank you. And as a result of that meeting, she happened to be a classical violinist. And as a result of that meeting, she played my favorite piece of music at our wedding. She got her friend who's a classical guitarist. The piece is called Concierto de Aranjuez by the Romero brothers, and it's made for classical guitar. So she got her friend who does classical guitar to accompany her as I walked down the aisle to my favorite music.
Wow.
So So which one do you think is stranger?
That's a good one. I mean, both events are, well, beautiful in their own right, but I would say that the second one with the classical violinist, I mean, that to, lose your driver's license, lose your ID in the park, it happens, but then also your ATM card.
And the same,
That
it's not like two different people found them and I had lost but the
no,
same person, you know?
yeah, like that just doesn't happen by accident. And two very different cards, two very different locations, happen to be the same one, and then she plays at your wedding. Like, because of all of that, she plays at your wedding when you're going down the aisle. I mean, that is something that um that's not an accident. Like, that was most definitely meant to happen. And
Now, here's the point though. Here is the point I want to make with both of
okay.
these. So when Jerry said, "Oh, I'll call you back," I
Mm-hmm.
could, and I could very easily have said, "Oh, you don't have to. This is a wrong number." I mean, this is just a wild coincidence, but you don't. I have nothing to talk to you about. This was an accident. Okay. The second one, when she said, "Can I put it through your slot?" Yeah, I said, "Yeah." I mean, this is just bizarre, but yeah, just put it through the slot. But in
Yeah.
both cases, I felt that this was bigger than me. This is bigger this is wild. This is something so bizarre. I had to take action. I said, "Jerry, promise that you're going to call." And he did. And with the woman who found my cards, no, we have to meet. I could have very easily. So by taking action, I
Yeah.
received exactly what I needed in both cases. So that's the kind of thing that kept happening over and over again.
Wow. And I do believe that, those coincidences, they would have kept happening until you did what you were supposed to do.
Now in these two cases, I believe that my father up in heaven
Mhm.
had it was his contribution to our wedding because I feel, I mean, without a doubt, again, through my experiences, that we can communicate with our uh, loved ones that have departed. And in fact, the first book is, um, the events. Well, when I wrote it, um, I didn't know how to organize a book. I'd never written a book before, and but I wanted to share this discovery about taking action on a coincidence to get a miracle. So I just wrote and wrote and wrote, and I mean it was like up to 700 pages because my husband kept urging me, just write it all down. You can chop it off later.
Mhm.
So the first book, the title is "The Divine Language of Coincidence: How Miracles um, Transformed My Life After I Began Paying Attention." So there were so many that I chopped all the events that had to do with death, including after death communication. And that became my second book, Consciousness Beyond Death, True Stories of Signs, Messages, and Timing. And in that, I mean, it's just, okay. And also, again, science. Okay.
Mhm.
Science. Because at first, scientists were not interested in the second book. And I don't, have you heard of this book titled Proof of Heaven by Dr. Eben Alexander?
Can't say I have. I will have to look it up.
Okay. So Dr. Eben Alexander is a neurosurgeon. And
Oh.
so he read my first book and loved it. And when he found out that I was writing a second one, he asked if I would send him the manuscript so that he could endorse the book. which I thought was great. So then I get this email from him, and he said, I'm sorry, I can't endorse your book because there's not sufficient discussion of consciousness. Now, that is what I consider to be BS, because the entire foreword was written by Dr. Deborah Green, and it's all about consciousness. But what it was code for, oh, I can be a neurosurgeon. I can almost die, have an NDE, which
Mm-hmm.
has been studied for years by scientists. Come back and write about it because, it's an NDE. But I can't touch your topic with a 10-foot pole. Well, lucky for me, just before publication, a new scientific field emerged, ADC, after-death communication. So now
Mm-hmm.
scientists are interested in the book. So they're catching up to us.
Wow. Okay. Oh, well, that's interesting. I mean, I have definitely seen that as well. That science is kind of now catching up to religion, to spirituality in my well belief, faith, if you will, Germanic paganism, Norse paganism. We have what we call the web of weird, which is the one thing that connects all of us. And now scientists are looking into that, but they're calling it the quantum field,
Mm-hmm.
for example.
Consciousness. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
It's like there's the materialistic scientists that believe that our brains are they are made to produce consciousness. And then there's the ones that think like me, where the brain is made to connect into consciousness, which is out there. And through consciousness is, how we can communicate, with our minds. We can, if anything is possible through this field of consciousness.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I also just yesterday actually spoke to someone on the podcast, and he he also said that science is definitely catching up to things, and also the magnetic field around us, the aura, if you will, that it can now indeed be proven that the heart creates its own electromagnetic fields, and that it extends 6 to 8 feet beyond us. So yeah, that's I'm very glad that science is now catching up, and that science and religion, or science and spirituality.
Now, what about this divine intelligence? I mean, do you believe that there's an intelligence out there that wants us to find our true purpose and find happiness?
Oh yes, I absolutely do. I mean, as a follower of the old gods of Europe, that really was my my base. Like from there, I managed to do more research in more occult and esoteric topics, and I do believe that maybe not everything, but definitely a lot of what we do is meant to happen. That the most important people in our life, or even coincidences, like losing 2 different cards, and it being found by the same person, that those are meant to happen. There is a greater message behind that, and indeed, if we only pay attention, if we only do listen to it and consciously think about it, then we are able to understand that message. I do believe there's definitely a higher being, or a higher consciousness of some kind, steering us, or at least presenting us with options, with things, and then of course free will comes into play, which isn't always the best thing. But but I also I do like to believe that if we are making let's say the wrong decision, or that we are in a way told that it's not the right decision that we made, and that we are kind of being nudged back into the right lane. But you do have to listen. You do have to really be conscious about it.
Can I give you an example to make that point?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is a perfect example of free will. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, after meeting my husband, pretty much at the beginning, I realized that he had anger issues that were a result of childhood issues, traumas, and so he would misinterpret like a innocent gesture, and then he would believe that that I was demeaning him, and then he would fly into this rage. And I mean, I put up with it because I saw how important this relationship was to him, and how much he tried, and he ended up finding a great therapist, and then he even joined a group of men. It was a group of ragers, and he became the poster boy. But he couldn't help but go into these rages, continue. So finally I had enough, and I decided I'm done. Now this is my free will. I was at a point, I moved out, and I moved in with a friend who was going through a divorce. And I came to a point where I never wanted to see this jerk again, ever. Okay, that is my decision. I have free will.
Mm-hmm.
3 things happened within 2 months that are unbelievable. Okay, so the first one was I remember waking up one morning and feeling so free, and I'm going to start my next chapter of my new life. And so I relied on looking at the book A Course in Miracles, which
Mm-hmm.
I open at random and read, and every time the message was just so apropos. So, and I had to read it, even if I didn't want to. So I opened the book to this chapter titled The Healed Relationship. And I'm like, I don't want to read this. I mean, this is not what I wanted, but I had to read it. And what I got out of it at the time, and you can read the same thing and get something different, but what I got out of it at the time was God is in everyone. And if your brother comes to you with this hand outstretched to make contact with you, and you say no to your brother, you say no to God. Oh, gee. Okay, now if he called, I had to say yes. Okay, I had to. How can I say no to God? Okay, so he calls the next day, and he wants to get together. So I had to say yes. I was forced to. So he comes over to where I was staying, and I had him sit across the dining room table. I wanted something between us. And I said to him, I was angry. And I said to him, I want you to know that the only reason you are sitting across from me is because of a miracle. And he says, well, I have a miracle for you too. Now, that was like not in his vocabulary, and I'm like, okay, you go first. And he says to me, starts telling me that the past Sunday he was fixing our fountain in our garden, which was a big, a tall column. The water comes out at the top, hugs the column, and goes into the basin. He was fixing the pump, and the column And as he's talking, he's taking off his wedding ring. He said the column fell on his hand. Now, if that was true, I'm telling you, his hand should be hamburger. Okay. And I'm
Yeah.
looking at his hand as he's taking off his wedding ring, and it's just a bruise and a little scratch. And he said, my wedding band took the brunt of the weight and saved my hand. And he
Wow.
shows me the wedding band, and it is squashed. And he said, and I'm not going to fix it. Okay. To me, that was one of the most bizarre things I've ever heard. It was absolutely inconceivable that of all things that would save his hand is his wedding ring. But I needed, and we start seeing each other after that. But you see, I needed something to hear that dramatic so that it disarmed me. It just disarmed me. And we started seeing each other. And then the third thing was, I was planning to go to Maui, Hawaii, to be in my best friend's wedding as a matron of honor for the third time. And so I wanted to invite him to come with me, but I had some trepidation because he sabotaged all these romantic getaways, with his rages. But I thought, no, I'm going to trust him. So we are on our way, and I thought, I need reading material. So I ran up, the cab was waiting. I ran up, and I had a shelf with like 6 books that I had started reading but hadn't finished. So I just grabbed one.
Yeah.
And I'm in the cab, and I'm like, I'm disappointed. It was called, what was it called? It was by Dr. Deborah Green. It's something energy. And she's a kinesiologist. She's the one that wrote the foreword, ended up writing the foreword to my book. And I thought, oh God, okay, endless energy. Okay, endless energy. So I'm on the plane, I start reading the book, and I'm fascinated. I mean, she does these energy clearings that, heal traumas, and I'm like, wow, this is just amazing. And I'm telling Frank about it, and then I would go to the back of the book to read her citations, and, Dr. Larry, what's his name, says prayer works, and I would go back and forth, and I'm at the back of the book, and there is her name and her address, Maui, Hawaii. Not only does she live in Maui, but she lives on Kihei Road, and that's where the condo was that we had rented. Okay, so now what do you do with that? I mean, am I just going to go, oh, what a coincidence? No. When we did our leg, I called her. I contacted her. Turns out I said, we're going to be here. These are the times we had free. She could see us. And I said, wait, I have to ask Frank. I said, Frank, if you say yes, look, Maui, Kihei Road. I said, if you say yes, it'll be your Christmas present. So he said yes. And we went, and each of us had a 2-hour reading with her, which was absolutely amazing.
Wow.
This was in 2009. And Frank has not had one anger event since then. I'm married to my dream guy. So here is exactly what you were saying. My free will was, I never want to see this guy again. But these 3 things were presented to me because this divine knowledge didn't want us to be apart, and cleverly came up with these events that brought us together, and I'm sublimely happy.
That's amazing. That is such a beautiful story, and like it's also those things that prove to me that coincidences, like true coincidence, as most people think them to be, they don't really exist. Like there's a message behind everything. But that's wow, that's an amazing story. And
And the other thing I'd like your audience to take away is obstacles that are put in front of us are just as meaningful as
yeah,
these positive coincidences, and I mean, and this is in the book, our honeymoon, how an amazing obstacle, we ended up missing our plane, and as a result of missing our plane, which we did make the trip the next day. There was a hurricane that had we so where we had made reservations for our honeymoon was in South Mexico, between Huatulco and Puerto Escondido, and there are like 9 huts. My one of my good friends would go there every summer, and it was run by a cordon bleu chef. So you would have this, charming little hut, and then you would have these amazing food, and it's on a bluff overlooking the ocean. So when we were able to go there after the hurricane, and I was just beside myself, like, God, why are you doing this to us? Why are you doing this to us? You don't know
yeah.
how many times I've thanked God for those obstacles. So we arrived there, and 7 out of the 9 huts had gone down in a mudslide, had disappeared.
Ooh.
1 was completely damaged, and 7 people were sleeping in the 1 hut. So how about that? I mean, this is where you offer gratitude. Like, thank you, God. So I really want, like, when these red flags start coming up over and over again, let it go.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Like I recently have begun seeing more and more of what has been dubbed by some the burnt toast theory. Like every time you you burn the toast or you miss the bus or something like that, it is because either like by that something greater is happening, or you're something worse has been prevented
Yes.
from happening. But yeah, no, obstacles. I definitely do believe in that. I haven't had the easiest life so far, but I do have to say that through all those obstacles, I have learned so incredibly much. I have grown so incredibly strong-willed, strong-minded, and I also think that a little bit of obstacles, a little bit of strife, you need it. You need it to, well, first of all, build a bit of character. And like, if everything just goes as you want it to, like your life is just, whatever you try, it succeeds, that would be so incredibly boring.
Yeah.
Like there would be nothing exciting about it. Like, oh, I'm going to try something new and I succeed right away. Okay, cool.
And
Sure.
it also makes you grateful for the amazing stuff, the
Yeah.
contrast. I mean, it gives you a contrast, So I do, I just, it's just, the proof, it has just been such proof. And what happens is that, I mean, none of the actions I took were like, sort of pondered, like, well, should I take action on this? It was just, oh, this is bigger than, it was just my gut. So,
Yeah.
by listening to your gut, listening to that inner voice, and you take action, and then you get what you need. You start trusting it, and you listen to it more, and you recognize the message more. And
Yeah.
and there's people who have said to me, well, why do these things only happen to you, and they don't happen to me? Well, if you just start thinking about it, it's, how did you meet your wife? What if you hadn't gone to that party? What if you didn't do this? What if you had done that? And so, and people can start to recognize, things from their own experience
Yeah.
that are positive, very positive, and and gives you the feeling that you're being looked out for. Somebody, this intelligence has your back.
Yeah. No, I definitely do believe that. And I think it's also that people believe that miracles are these grand things that happen, these major events. But as as you've told us, it starts with just the tiniest of things. It is a chapter in a book. It is, like, oh shit, I'm in a hurry. I need to grab a book. Turns out that the author actually lives, well, right down the road. And it's also a thing, like, if you overthink it, if you think about it too much, and like try to rationalize it, then it stops making sense. Like, just as you said, trust your guts. Let it happen. There is a greater plan for all of us. Just,
Well,
trust your guts.
yes, but I've also experienced what people would consider something grand. Okay, I mean, really, like spontaneous healing. And there's a chapter in the second book that had to do with my mother a few days before she died. That was absolutely, I think, the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me. The spontaneous healing was uh, I'm a Greek Orthodox. My faith is Greek
Hmm.
Orthodox, and so on Easter Holy Week, on Wednesday is Holy Unction. So ever since I was a child, so my mother would tell me that when you're anointed um, with oil, that
Hmm.
that 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 Jesus is present, okay, and that if you just take this oil and put it wherever it hurts, it'll heal you. And so at the time, I had this bump on my eyelid that I had it for 8 months. I mean, at first the ophthalmologist slit it, which brought it down. It was a soft lump, and then it came back. And then he says, "Well, we have to, you know, inject it with whatever." So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so he injects, does this injection, and this lump now turns into what felt like a hard, like a like like a dry bean. That's so
Oh,
it was extremely annoying. Like when I would blink, it was
that's
very
highly
annoying.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
And so then he says, well, we could do this again. We can slash it. We can re-inject it, or you could just let it decalcify by itself, which I chose to do. Okay. So now it's 8 months of this thing. And I was in line waiting to be anointed, where all of a sudden I felt this just, um, this feeling of like, like I'm about to meet my hero or something. I'm just this feeling, this anticipation, just
Yeah.
incredible anticipation. And I get up and the priest anoints me, and the feeling that I had immediately after is what I describe as 1,000 angels taking turns hugging me. Just this incredible sensation.
Wow.
And I I didn't want to be in the church. I felt confined. I wanted, and my very good friend was the organist, and she was going to give me a ride home because this was at night. And I lived about 25 blocks away from the church. And so I had to wait until church was over. And I said, I'm going to walk home. She goes, oh, no, you're not. Oh, no, you're not. Because I was going to kind of go through a sort of edgy neighborhood, I said, no, believe me. I said, nothing's going to happen to me. I just have to walk home. So I did.
Yeah.
I walked home. I went to bed. I got up in the morning, and the first sensation that I felt was I didn't have the annoyance when I was blinking. So I feel it, and the lump is gone. And I go to the mirror, and there was just a pink spot. I just couldn't deal with it. I got dressed, went to work, went to the mirror, and it was just gone. No pink, no nothing, gone. So, so that's not, it's, just my imagination. It was there, and then people knew about it, and then it was unbelievable. So maybe somebody would think, okay, that's now a real miracle. No, one is not bigger or better than the other. The two miracles that brought me what I needed for the wedding was delightful, but what saved my marriage, I would say it's not bigger or better, but to me it's more important that saving my marriage was more important. So
Yeah.
and so I would if I could leave one thing to your audience is, if these extraordinary things, if these things can happen to a very ordinary woman, they can happen to anyone.
Yes, I am fully convinced of that. That's very true. Oh, but that must have been so odd and so freeing at the same time. Like 8 months of, what the medical, the medical people, like they couldn't get it. They couldn't get it. They couldn't, was, either all those procedures or just have that annoyance for, well, probably the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But then through, like, literally through faith,
Yes.
wow, that's really special. And yeah, it also gives, it gives a lot more credit to, faith and faith healing, that it's truly, it is a thing. They're not just stories. I mean,
Yes.
I'm not a Christian myself, but I am aware of, biblical stories, and I do believe there is more to that there is a mystical part about it, that there is definitely something mystic about it. That's why I also don't deny the power of Christ, whatever he may be or may have been, physical, non-physical, doesn't matter to me. I do acknowledge his power and his teachings. But we are so.
If you're interested in mysticism, which I know you are, I would invite people to, if they go on my website, sophiademas.com, just my name, and go on my influencers page. It's 8 people that I have had personal contact with that I consider to be my mentors. And if there's one blurb that you must read, is Abbess Emiliani. Okay, she's a nun and you can't miss her. And her story is a firsthand account of bilocation that I think you would find fascinating.
Bilocation, okay.
Yeah, you're in two someone is in two places at once. It's explained by quantum physics, quantum,
Yeah, I'm aware of the
but it's a first-hand account.
scientific explanation, the scientific research behind it. I'm aware of that, also having to do with the double slit experiment and all of that.
Mhm. Well, I mean,
Um,
uh, it, I mean, yogis have been able to do this for thousands of years. But
yeah.
then, I learned that Greek Orthodox, just Orthodox, because there's Russian Orthodox monks as well that practice bilocation. So it it's not it's not unheard of, but I'm just so grateful that I know someone that has a firsthand account of it.
I'll I'll be sure to check it out. I do find that very interesting. Also, topics like astral travel, for example, remote viewing.
Hmm.
That is all so incredibly fascinating to me, and that it can just be done by, I mean, well, yeah, regular humans, but very rigorous training and exercise. Of course, it just proves that we are capable of so much more. That we are, not just average individuals. That we're not just, human beings.
And it's not just Christian, I mean, to me, uh, all these belief systems, that are practiced, yield these things. I mean, it's, it's like a, a professor, it's a doctor here, it's a neuro uh, scientist who has conducted experiments on doing brain scans. So
Hmm.
he uh, he did a series of brain scans on Buddhist monks and Catholic nuns praying. So the Buddhist monks while meditating, and
Yeah,
the Catholic nuns while praying, and their their scans change and become the same. The When you get into that space where these things happen, this change of consciousness,
yeah,
I find that so interesting. Again, and this was years ago that he did these experiments. So it's becoming more and more accepted. In fact, that the Synchronicity Summit that I participated in, it was
hmm
so well received that a book was published by participants' essays, and which includes mine, and it's titled "The Playful Universe." And there's many of these essays um, that come across as almost religious conversions. Like, oh, I used to be, a materialist scientist. I had to see it to believe it, but now through these, synchronicities and these experiences, I am, I believe differently. So you're really having this change in acceptance.
yeah. No, and I for one, am very very happy to see that, and I do believe that many practices are similar, if not the same, or come from a similar root. Like I like that you brought up Russian Orthodox, because I do the the very deep singing, like almost chanting, that a lot of those Orthodox man choirs do, for example. That is a thing that in my belief, Germanic paganism, like we call that Galder. It is throat singing. It is still, it is harmonizing.
And it's a vibration, it's a
Yeah.
that's what you're explaining, is a vibration. And also, orthodoxy is more like quantum physics in that there's no like God up there, it's, it permeates, omniscient, omnipresent. It's a consciousness more than, an old man with flowing white hair.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. That's why I think orthodoxy is closer to the truth, if you will, than like more mainstream religions. Even though there's definitely truth to it, they're still too focused on the afterlife and a power that
Or, and
is.
also the word, like the Bible, the Bible
Yeah.
is, is, parables of how to live, but people will quote the Bible and not live the Bible. And,
Oh, that's being
yeah,
done. Yeah.
and hypocrisy was Jesus's biggest pet peeve.
Yeah, no, I mean that is so incredibly true. People who can quote all the scriptures, but they don't know what it actually means. They don't know what's actually been said, and um, I find it kind of like pretty shameful. There are so many incredible teachings in the Bible, and it's not just a story. It's astronomy, it's astrology, it's
Yes.
alchemy, it's mysticism. It's so much. It's so much than just a story, than just a book. But there are still so many people who, well, let's say, who have yet to learn that. That's why I always stay open minded to these things as well. I don't just have conversations with people who believe the same that I do, because like it's nice, being in an echo chamber, like, oh yeah, that's definitely that, and that's definitely that. Okay, cool. But you don't learn from that. And especially on the podcast, that's why I love having this platform. I have had conversations with people who disagree with me, who are I remember in one instance that when I told her that I do see value in the teachings of Christ, and I do believe that there is this higher power, that she was like, then why aren't you Christian? It's like, well, because that's simply not for me. Like, I can acknowledge his teachings. I can acknowledge his mystical workings without being Christian. But that didn't connect. That didn't.
I'll tell you, I was raised Greek Orthodox from a child, and my mother never pushed it on me, but and I think this is why okay, somebody asked me, I was a guest in a podcast, and somebody asked me, everybody has a miracle story or a coincidence, or why do you think you have so many? And I thought about it, because, that's actually why I decided to write the book. But I was like thinking, and I am going to give all the credit to my mother. Okay. Because what she told me as a child, um,
Mhm.
that in Greek is my first language. So, there, you can attach a suffix and turn any object into a cute little object. So you can have a glass, and then you can say a little glass, or, it
Yeah,
makes it cute or whatever. So,
yeah. We have the same in Dutch. Yeah.
uh-huh. So she would say to me, Sophia, if you want something, if you want something to happen, or there's something that you need, just ask little Jesus. Just ask little Jesus, and he will give it to you. If it's good for you, he will give it to you. He loves children. And,
Hmm.
sometimes you wake up and you're scared of the dark. Well, just ask the little Virgin Mary to protect you, and she will. So what she was doing, what I realized she was doing, that ever since I was a toddler, I believe that communicating with unseen beings was perfectly natural. And I think that has propelled me, walking down the street asking for what I want. If I don't get it, it's for the best. If I get it, great. And I truly believe that I have this gift and that has opened me up to communicating with departed loved ones. And
Yeah.
I really credit her with that.
Yeah. I mean, your parents are so incredibly important in this. As I said before we started recording, I am a father of two myself, and I remember when my daughter was a little younger, she would tell me that there are, as as kids do, that there are these beings, like scary beings, underneath her bed, um, and so instead of being the strict parent, like, oh, okay, I'll look, but I don't see anything, there's nothing there, I would pretend, and she would absolutely love that I would you know just grab these monsters, grab them by the collar and throw them out, and she would absolutely love that. And I also invited her to help me with that. It's like, oh, is there more? Yeah, he's right there. It's like, okay, I'll grab him, make sure he doesn't go away. And I just that came so incredibly natural to me. But that is, I mean, I do hope. I mean, I can only hope she's 10 by now. We did that when she was, oh gosh, 2, 3 years old, maybe. She's a little witchling for sure. Um, but to believe your child when they say that is so incredibly important. Or when every kid has their imaginary friend, to them, it is so incredibly real. He's right here next to me, it's real to me. And I do believe that as a parent, it is so important to acknowledge that, even if you don't see the imaginary friend, even if you're just like, oh, this cute imaginary friend, acknowledge it. Acknowledge that, that friend, that thing is there. Your kids will definitely grow up a lot more open-minded, and we we need that in these days. We need a bit more open-minded people. And I had one final question, I guess. You mentioned that with the miracles surrounding your wedding, that you believe that was your late father, kind of steering you in those directions. How do you know when it is indeed a loved one that is helping you, or that is sending you these signals, and when is it a divine being, a higher being, or is there even a difference between those at all?
Well, there's physical proof. There's physical proof. Two things that happened with my father. Both times I was the first time I was thinking of him. I was going through something. I don't know what it was, but I was just on the verge of falling asleep. And there were two doors, one on each side of my bed. One went to the hallway of my apartment, and the other one went into the bathroom. And so I was thinking of him and thinking, I wish you were here to tell me, what to do. And
Yeah.
just at that second, the door to the hallway flung open. That never happened before. Never. And I felt this warmth in the room that completely lifted whatever was bothering me, and I fell asleep. It was almost like he was there, without a doubt. And the other, to bolster this, my father had gotten me in the stock market when I was like 19 years old, and I'm walking home from work, and I'm thinking of whether I should sell the stock. Okay, should I sell it? Should I not? I really want to sell it. I think it's the right time. And I went, oh, Daddy. Now I'm going up the steps to my door, my front door.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, oh, Daddy, I wish you were here to tell me. Okay, give me a sign. I really feel I should sell it. And I went up the stairs to my apartment door, and the door to the hallway was flung open. Okay, so yes, and I sold it, and it was the right thing to do. Okay, so see, to me, there's physicality there. And I'm going to say one more little story because this is just so adorable. But I have a very close connection with one of my nephews. We have a real bond. And just before publication of my second book, I'm on the phone with him, and he said, oh, you know what? I don't think I've ever told you this before. Now he has my attention, right? Because, and I was so lucky to get this story before publication of the book, so I've included it in, because the first chapter are all these things that had to do with my father, and the second one, all that had to do with my mother, communications. And so this is the last story. So he tells me that, he said, Teddy, that's his son. He said,
Yeah.
Teddy was a year and a half. And I know he was a year and a half because, that's when he just started talking. Because before that, all he could say was Papa and Mama. And so I'm feeding him. He's in the high chair, and I'm feeding him. And I had to do the airplane, so, because he would get distracted. And I'm doing this, and he said, all of a sudden, his eyes just opened up like silver dollars. He said, and his mouth drops open, and he's staring past my left shoulder. And then all of a sudden he starts giggling, and he's giggling, and he's giggling. And I said, Teddy, what are you seeing? And he goes, yeah. Now, Yaya is grandmother in Greek. Okay.
Okay.
And, there's kids that don't speak Greek that say it the English way, which is Yaya. No one had said, this is how you say Yaya in Greek. And my nephew is describing something that he went from distracted to absolutely focused to giggling. So obviously my mother introduced herself to him. There's no other explanation. So I was able to put this in the book, so.
Oh,
So I
wow.
just feel real fortunate to have that story.
Wow. Okay. That is, yeah, that's definitely something. That's really beautiful.
It's these stories that should give people comfort that you don't disappear when you die. You simply shed your body, and you're as cognizant as you and I are right now. And all this proves to me that after I go, I too will be able to cleverly communicate with those that I left behind. And it's a very comforting feeling.
Yeah, I can imagine so. I've definitely had some experiences with that as well. Mostly with my my younger brother, we unfortunately lost him
Oh, wow.
a few years ago. He didn't manage to defeat his own demons, of course,
I'm
unfortunately. But
I'm sorry to hear.
there are, yeah, but there are small signs here and there that he is still around.
Oh,
And
there's no doubt.
no, I'm sure. And he still has also a younger sister to look after and make sure that his big brother doesn't do anything stupid. I do have a bit of a history of reckless behavior, and he was always the smart ass that came with the comments like, that wasn't so great, wasn't it? Like, why'd you do that again? It's like, yeah, okay, I know you're the brainiac.
Yeah,
So,
I actually received a message from a medium. This was completely unsolicited, that saved my other nephew from taking his life.
oh wow, okay.
And that's in the book as well.
I'm going to have to read the book now. If it's
Second
just filled
Second.
with second book, of course. Well, then I'm gonna have to read all two of them. Wow, thank you so much for sharing these stories with us, for sharing your story with us. It's they're absolutely amazing, and I will have to read those books now. I am left with no other choice.
Well, thank you for providing the platform so that these stories can be spread, Thank
It is my pleasure. It is absolutely my pleasure. And for the audience, where may they find your books? Where may they find more about you, what you
They're
do, what you have
Amazon,
experienced?
you can get them through my website, sophiademas.com. There you you can order them in bookstores. They're in certain bookstores. So uh, they're and also the second book is offered in like an audiobook, and
Oh,
the first book is in process of being published as an audiobook.
oh, nice. Okay. I'll of course make sure that all the links are in the description box down below. My to read list is going to be so incredibly long with all these books. Um, but I mean, it's the struggles of being a bookworm, I guess. So many interesting stories to read, so many interesting
Yes,
people
and
to
so
meet.
little time.
Yeah, I mean, 24 hours in a day just is not enough, unfortunately, to do everything that I want, to read everything that I want. But I guess I still have a lifetime ahead of me to do all of that. So I'm very fortunate. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and of course to my wonderful audience, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Um, Please do make sure to, of course, like, share, and subscribe. I may provide the platform for these stories, but I do feel that they are so um, incredibly valued, and that they have to be shared far and wide. So do share it with everyone, your friend, your neighbor, your dog, your grandma. I do not care. Just share it out. Make sure that you are subscribed with the notification bell on, of course, so that you do get notified whenever a new episode comes live or a new video is being uploaded. If you are listening to this on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to give us that 5-star rating. It's a small token of appreciation, but means the world to us. For everything else that we do on the Greyhorn Pagans, for everything else that we do with the Greyhorn Pagans podcast, do go to our website, www.greyhornpagans.com, where you can find everything from our tribe, the tribes that we are connected with, to our Patreon merch, and so much more. Sophia, thank you again for coming on. Thank you for sharing these stories. They are absolutely amazing. Have given me a lot of food for thoughts as well, and I'll be sure to read your book as well. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
And to all my listeners, to all my viewers, I wish you a pleasant day, evening, night, whatever it may be for you. And I'll see you all next time. This was yet another amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. We thank you all for watching. We thank you all for listening. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload something new. Support us on Patreon for early access and for everything else that we do with the tribe, for everything else that we do with the podcast. Find us on www.greyhornpagans.com.